Serious now. Flexion off his head is serious.
Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Cicero Planning Board meeting. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Duval, would you lead us off?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we jump into the meeting, I just want to announce that we had a couple of comments regarding people not being able to hear us from home. So I want to make sure, I want to remind myself and everybody else that we utilize the microphone when we're speaking. Nice and close. The first item is the approval of the minutes from the May 4th meeting. Everybody's had a chance to review. Any questions or comments? We have a motion for approval.
Motion to approve as printed.
Second.
Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes.
Forgot my name.
Mr.
And I vote
whatever your
yes.
name is.
Please remind us. Next is the public input. If there's anybody here in the audience that would like to address the board on any active application, you're more than welcome to come up and address your concerns or comments. Given nobody's approach, we'll close the public input portion and move on to the first agenda item, which is site plan. This is AT&T Mobility. They've been here a couple times now. Welcome back. This is for the site right at Town Hall.
I do have the copies I promised in the email. If any of the board members would like a copy of the drawings, the easement, and the amendment to Crown's easement. If not, I can leave them for your records if.
Do you have a copy?
Yeah, I believe they were distributed electronically. I don't know if you got the paper copies.
I have copies of the easements and one additional underlying easement that I dug out. That was the original one, and I will give them to the clerk to be included in our file.
Okay. Everybody's had a chance to review them?
Yes.
So you moved, you want to go through what you did?
Oh, yeah. So my name is Jake Lehman. I'm here on behalf of AT&T Mobility. We're seeking a planning board approval for a 20-foot extension onto the tower right outside. Last time we were here, we seemed to have a few problems with where our equipment was located, it encroaching on National Grid's easement. After doing some digging through county records, we realized that we were encroaching on their easement. So we moved over to where we have our equipment now, as shown up there, which is in a second tower parcel that was created with 4 Crown's existing area in turn when they gave up the space they had for National Grid's easement.
Mark, do you have the map showing the easement with the new layout?
Yeah, it's up there. There's we have an overall plan here.
Oh, there it is. Now I can see it.
Yeah, so previously the equipment was over here and was encroaching slightly into the easement here for National Grid. They've now taken and moved the equipment over here. And I think in researching through the easement information, an additional easement was granted to Crown over here for their utilization of the site. So it's within an easement here, and it's been moved out of the easement encroachment over here. So I think we're good to go with this.
Terrific. We'll open for questions, Mr. Duval.
So everything's been straightened out as far as location and.
Yeah, well,
The-
I
the
personally was the
easements.
one who dug through the county records to find the amendment. Then we worked with Crown Castle, the tower owners, to make sure that they were okay with us putting our equipment there. So everything's been ironed out.
Okay.
Mr. Abbey?
Thanks for getting that all clarified and straightened out. I appreciate it.
Mr. Snyder?
Did you give our lawyer a copy of the information from FAA about a light on the top of this critter?
I did, yes. I sent the FAA determination over to you guys. There is no light that's needed
There's
on
no
top
light
of it.
required.
We received it. They've made their application FAA and they don't that they're not in an encroachment where it requires a light. If they put one up, they have to put it up to FAA standards.
I'm good.
Mr. Bloss?
I'm good.
I'm good as well. Steve?
All set.
Neil?
All set.
Mark? Anything
Also,
additional?
thank you.
I will make a motion for the standard seeker.
I'll second.
Mr. Duval?
Yes.
Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Neil, would you propose a motion for approval?
Yes, you're going to move for the adoption of a resolution approving the application known as AT&T Mobility, 8236 Brewerton Road, proposed telecommunications tower collection. This approval is strictly conditioned on the following: one, the color schemes, renderings, and or elevations as presented by the applicant to the planning board in regards to this application shall be incorporated by reference into this site plan and the board's approval thereof. Accordingly, the actual project must substantially conform to the items presented herein.
So move.
A second?
Second.
Mr. Duval?
Yes.
Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
And I vote yes. You're all set. Good luck
Perfect,
with it.
thank you. Would you like the hard copies of our drawings and the amendment, or?
You can leave them with me. Thanks.
Next item on the agenda is sketch plan review. This is for premium pools of Central New York. Property is at 5472 Miller Road.
Hi,
Good evening.
I'm Pat Reynolds with I Newsy and Romans Land Surveying, and I am representing our client, Jason Ambriant, who is also in attendance to answer any questions related to the running of the business. A quick overview of the site. The site is 4.86 acres, consisting of 3 existing buildings. There's a small 24 by 24 frame garage, a 2,400 square foot building with 6 residential apartment units, and a 3,300 square foot building that was previously used as a dance studio and church before that. The site has a large blacktop parking lot that currently has 73 parking spaces and 2 separate ingress egress points out to Miller Road. The applicant is only going to be leasing a portion of the site. The existing apartment building and small frame garage are not part of this application, and we're proposing no changes to those structures or uses. The applicant is using the 3,300 square foot building and is proposing a new 1,800 square foot pole barn to be used for business specializing in in-ground pool installations, repair, and service. Excuse me. The existing 3,300 square foot building will receive a facelift and will be used for the sale of pool-related supplies, while the pole barn will be used for storage of tools and equipment. Pole barn is going to be finished in blue siding with white trim and will match the appearance of the existing building. Any existing landscaping on site will be refurbished and replaced with low-level plantings. The existing landscaping timbers that currently outline the landscape will be replaced with a newer block landscape wall. We are also proposing 2 signs for this project. We're going to utilize the existing sign frame at the corner of Miller Road and 11. There will also be a new sign frame on the front of the existing 3,300 square foot building. The exact size, location, design of these signs still being worked out. And once we have that finalized, I will submit that to the town. The existing parking lot is going to be reconfigured. We are proposing the easterly entrance there to be reduced in size, and both drives now are going to be ingress egress access points. With the reconfiguration of the parking lot, we are now proposing 60 spaces, which includes 3 accessible spaces and 12 parking spaces to be reserved for the apartment building. There will be a blacktop drive from the existing parking lot that will provide access to the back proposed pole barn. And alongside that, we are proposing a wooden stockade fence, dumpster enclosure. The hours of operation for this use are gonna be Monday through Saturday, 7 AM to 5 PM. There are 9 employees who will perform the on-site service and installations, and there will be 3 employees to work inside the retail store. The service and installation side of the business uses 6 box fans, 1 small dump truck, and 3 trailers, all of which will be stored on site. We're looking at using the parking spaces proposed along the easterly side of the site for the storage of the vehicles to be used with the business. Currently, right now, we're just over an acre, or, just over half an acre of disturbance. Is there any?
All set? Mr. Duval, questions?
Yes, the existing building that you're going to put the store in, you're not changing the dimensions at all, right?
We're not changing the dimensions, but we have, we are gonna be changing the front facade of it and the colors. I believe that has been supplied to you guys.
Yes.
Okay, are you going to be displaying any pools there? No. Okay. All right, I'm good.
Mr. Abbey?
You mentioned you're not going to be,
Chuck.
having any pools,
Can you grab your mic, please? Sorry.
not having any pool displays. You mentioned, in-ground pools, is that?
That's correct, yes.
No.
So I'm affiliated with Liverpool Pool and Spa
Can you,
I've been with
can you
them
speak into the mic,
for
please?
30-something years.
Okay.
So I'm kind of a sister company with them. So we're opening up another store. We're opening up a store in Brewerton. They're gonna house all the material, all the components, all the steel components. The only thing that I'm housing is the store, the material or the products in the store. So outside the store, the only thing that's gonna be out there is gonna be my vehicles, the construction equipment to do the work. But everything else is gonna be stored at Liverpool Pool and Spa, located on 31, and they take it from there and they deliver it to the job site. I show up and I just do that. Any of the pools that I sell personally on my own will be also coming from that store as well.
Okay, is it strictly in-ground or you do above ground
Just
also?
strictly in ground.
Okay, I know in your Liverpool building, you have a sample of an in-ground pool.
Yeah, they got.
One of the neat things is you have the angled glass, so it reflects.
Yeah,
down
yeah,
onto the
yeah.
pool.
See that. He
That's
came
really
up with
neat.
That scheme himself.
Yeah, it was
As
great.
you drop them by, you get to see it.
Whoever did that, it was a great idea. That's all at this point.
Mr. Snyder?
You said that the construction equipment that you use will be parked along the, wherever the north arrow is.
North is the bottom screen.
So when I drive in to go in the store to buy something, I'm gonna drive by a bunch of construction equipment.
Well, it's gonna be, so they have 6 box fans, a small dump truck, and some trailers used for the site. The box fans, the dump truck, they're gonna be parked there along the side of the left side as you're looking at it.
During the day, they're all gonna be gone.
Big one.
There's not gonna be many vehicles in that parking area until normally when we close, but I get the store's probably gonna close. Our employees work till 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. We were gone by 6:30 in the morning. So that area, there's the only thing that would be left in that location would be maybe a dump truck or a trailer, which I think that we're gonna be able to move, in the back to where we have a little bit of parking area back there. We're trying to move as much equipment as we can out of view and towards the back.
Well, that's what I'm thinking that it shouldn't be there. It should be in the back where you're building this pole barn. So, I mean,
So I guess we could redesign that area to be, if we have enough room to adjust that pole barn to fit in those certain vehicles. How many vehicles could we have out front? That, I mean, 2 or 3, I don't think is too bad. I mean,
I'm saying I don't want any construction vehicles in front.
Okay,
It's the front of the building. It's where people come in. They shouldn't be driving by a bunch of construction equipment to get to your pool supply place. So I'm saying that your construction vehicles, the vehicles you guys use, not the car the guy comes in to go then get in one of your vans, but, because they can park up front, obviously they're gonna be okay. But the vehicles you use to do your business should be in the back out of sight. That's all I got for now.
Mr. Bloss.
Looking at the pictures that you supplied, the brown building, was it, did you say that was a previous church?
Yes, it's
You-
my understanding that it was,
Just want to make sure I'm talking about the same building. Do you have any plans to change the facade, the outside of that building, or
Yeah, it should be in the drawing there, down
I
there.
missed it then?
Oh, yeah, one of the drawings show that.
Just the front of the building, the front facade. The
Just
rest
the,
of it, it's all
just the
gonna be-
face of it, front of it,
just
yeah.
the face of it.
Yeah, okay, I'm all set.
So this is all one lot, the apartment complex. You're the owner of the entire complex?
No.
No.
it's gonna be leasing the building, a portion of the property.
Okay.
We're gonna be eventually in the process of going to buy it, but we wanna go 6 months and then we're gonna put the whole corner involved in the whole.
I agree with Mr. Snyder that the construction vehicles should be in the back. And you're going to provide some detail on landscaping, what you're going to be doing?
Yes, moving forward, we'll get something nailed down with the type of plantings we're gonna have and things like that.
That's all I have. Steve?
Is there gonna be any pallets of chlorine or other pool chemicals or supplies stored in front or on the side of the building? I know a lot of pool companies, you'll see that on the side when
Yeah,
they're- people picking up the chlorine.
No, not at this time. Nothing's gonna be in front of the building with landscaping.
Can you move up to the mic, please?
Nothing will be stored outside the vicinity of the, in front of the store or the sides. Everything will be in-house.
So a note on the plans will be helpful with that. Good question.
But you will be selling chlorine in the store. So I think Steve's question is, where will you won't keep it in the building. So if
No,
it's
it'll be-
outside,
It'll be in the building. Not only a certain amount, and we'll replenish that area as we need it. The
Okay.
chemicals will be stored out back of the storage in the pole barn.
yeah, I don't think you can have chlorine stored in the building.
You
Uh,
can,
adjacent to the
yeah,
building.
you can, yeah, you
Yeah,
can.
you can buy it right in the store.
Yeah.
I know I can buy dry chlorine, but I didn't know.
It's just those larger, like 5-gallon canisters in most places will have them outside and they'll be
Okay.
stored, because people, instead of picking the small gallon, they'll be grabbing a 5-gallon.
Yeah, plus
Yeah.
Liverpool, they're selling units of those, pallets of those a week where they have the storage outside, where they're constantly moving them in and out. We don't expect ourselves to be.
Steve, anything else?
All set, thanks.
Neil?
There's just a couple of things that I just heard that I think would want to appear on the plan somewhere, like, the no outdoor display of pools, construction vehicles in the rear of the building only, no storage in the front of the building. Those should be clearly delineated if those are what the board is wishing. So we don't have to think about that later.
Correct. Mr. Parrish?
Yeah, I guess just a couple items. So, well, one thing we would, I guess I've heard that there's 70 some parking spaces or something like that, I guess.
Existing, yeah.
Yeah, which seems excessive for the use. So, and the other thing you said that ties into this is that the other buildings aren't part of the application, but they are. So we need to understand what the uses are in those buildings, what's going on with them, so we can make sure that the site is set up correctly. And when, to get back to the parking, when you're gonna have to give us a basis for why you have the number of parking spaces that you have. So you've indicated, and you're gonna move the area for the vehicle storage for the business to the rear. You've got X number of employees that you indicated. I don't know how many tenants you have in the apartment complex, but basically I would suggest you, depending on how many units there are there, you have at least 2 parking spaces per unit. And then that kind of leaves how many customers do you expect to be on the site, which we can't dictate, but you can tell us what you think that's gonna be, how many customer parking spaces. Saying, having said all that, I wouldn't suggest that, you know, we do just get rid of these, and if there's asphalt there, let's get rid of it. And, you know, get rid of these parking spaces here, that'll give you a little, you know, so you don't have your pavement right up to the edge of your site. And you've got a, you know, a buffer in there. I understand it's a National Grid easement right next to you, but nevertheless, you know, we don't like to get the pavement right up to the edge of the site. I don't know that there's much you can do over here because of the way you're positioning this or the building's position. But again, I just look at that and I'd look at some opportunities to reduce the amount of pavement that you have here. It'll mitigate for the additional impervious area that you're putting onto the site. I'll get more detailed comments to you when we do a complete review, but those are just a few items I'd recommend. Just, you know, looking at this first review here, sketch plan.
Thank you.
Anything else from you? All right, well,
We're all set.
we're good for today.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Next item on the agenda is a proposed 60,000 square foot warehouse building at 5789 and 5813 East Taft Road. This is with Benderson Development.
Good evening, Matthew Oakes with Benderson Development. Tonight presenting a 60,000 square foot warehouse that we are proposing on the west side of Airport Business Park in the area of an existing parking lot. The site is where we previously, about 2 years ago, did the about 60,000 square foot expansion for SRC. And then the SOS medical building is on this side of the site. New York State DMV is up here, and then there's access from East Half Road and then Church Street over here. The section of the site is an existing parking lot right now. It is a very underutilized section of the site in regards to parking. As part of the application, we had SRF and Associates actually conduct a parking occupancy survey at the site to show the town that the site is only currently parked at about a 33% utilization rate, which is why we feel doing the warehouse in this section of the site is a good reuse of the area and not just having an existing parking lot in that area and to bring in a new building to that area. As part of the project, we are proposing to have the loading area for the building at the northwest corner in this area. And then this remaining section, which is currently a parking lot, we are proposing to remove the existing parking lot and leave it as green space. So we're actually, for our project area, we're reducing the amount of impervious area by about 23%. In regards to the architecture for the building, we are looking to play off of the existing SRC building that is there. This is a colored elevation of the building. We're kind of matching the brickwork and the entrance design that is on the existing SRC building, and then kind of using the existing color palette that is there as well. This is the section that faces into SOS. And then you have the section facing, as you're coming in, we're going to be doing a feature on the corner, which would be at the southwest corner of the building. So as you come in, we're going to kind of do like a nicer feature on the building as you see it for entering. And then this would be the side facing SRC here. And then this would be back corner. Along the road that comes in, as you drive in the main road, there is a significant amount of trees that are also in that area. With the construction staying farther away, our plan is to leave all those trees in as well. So that'll help kind of provide an additional buffer and kind of break up the back elevation of the building as well. But overall, we think it's a good kind of reuse for the rest of this site. This is a separate tax parcel as well. We feel there's more than sufficient overall parking and everything else on the site. I think it's a good use for it. And then questions the board has.
Mr. Duval.
Yes. Yes, what are you storing there?
Right now, we do not have a tenant for the building yet, so we're presenting for the warehouse right now. We don't have a signed lease for a tenant yet, so we don't have anything to state that what would be stored there. Anything that would be stored there would be per New York State Building Code, the New York State Fire Code, and would be designed in accordance in regards to sprinkler system, things of that nature.
Okay.
Mr. Abbey?
So you're saying the basic use at this point would be for other tenants, not for your own use?
It would not, no, it is not for Benderson's use. Nope. It would be a building for us to lease out.
Okay.
Yes.
Or expand to at some point?
Pardon?
Or expand to at some point, maybe?
Yes, or someone on site could possibly expand to that building and expand a existing campus that is there, possibly.
And look at this elevation here. Look, the east elevation, that's just one solid wall. I mean,
Which, let me just.
there's no doors in it?
So the west elevation doesn't, the elevation itself does not reflect the loading doors that would be put in on this corner. So that would be in this section of the site. And then based on code and egress, there probably would be a couple doors that would have to be put in there for emergency exits and things of that
Okay,
nature.
at a later time.
Yes, those, yep. But the loading docks should be shown on that, and we can update that elevation because we would put the loading docks in, like we try to, at the time, put in a couple loading docks when we build a building.
Depending on the usage.
Yeah. We don't go overboard, and we wouldn't like say build a warehouse and then like just throw dock doors all the way down because dock doors are expensive to
Sure.
put in, but we do try to put a couple in.
When I first looked at the top elevation there, I thought, where's the entrance to the motor vehicle? Because you copied it pretty
Yeah.
good.
I will have that updated.
Okay, I'm all set for now. Thank you.
Mr. Snyder?
So you weren't trying to play a game with us and not show the overhead doors, because I looked at your floor plan
Which,
and
yes.
you showed a concrete pad for unloading. But then when I looked at the drawing, I said, maybe my eyes are bad. I'm getting to be an old man, but I thought there should be some garage doors shown. Yeah,
Yeah, right there.
Hmm.
Yep, there would be like, they're probably gonna be like 10 by 12 overhead doors. The sizing we have for the recessed loading area, I believe accommodates 5. So yes, there should be the doors, and I'm not sure why the architect did not put those
now.
on there, but I will have
You're
those. shown.
gonna- The loading, because the floor plan seems to show elevation wise, you're basically at grade for the floor of the building.
So,
So there'll be ramps down to
correct, so
get to
this
the
is,
loading dock.
yes, this is a recess -4. So the design of this dock will mirror the existing dock that's out there for SRC and angles down, and then, so then you're the -4. So then the trucks better are actually at the existing finished floor, yes.
So there could be a vendor that rents this place that says, I want 5 doors down the side of that building. And then you would do it
On
on a, well, which is the west
the
side.
west side, yes, so our plan and our current design is to have that dock area at the top and to make that a dock and to have the 5 doors in there. We don't have plans to say expand down or add in more. We're leaving it as green space. We don't want to overbuild and then say, have a tenant come in. They need 4 or 5 docks on that corner, and we've proposed an entire concrete loading dock area, and then we just spent a couple $100,000 putting in unnecessary concrete. It's designed in a way that in the future, if another tenant came in, we could be coming back, say, to possibly add in doors, but we would rather leave the green space at the start and only put in a few doors at the top and then come back for additional doors rather than just showing loading docks all the way across that aren't needed.
I guess my concern is this 60,000 square foot building and putting the docks, if you put the docks in the middle of that wall, I can understand that and it would probably be fine, but you're now putting them at the northwest corner of the building, which
Yes.
means everything that goes in the building has got to be forklift to place they're going to store it, which to me is kind of crazy.
That, that is the current design we're working on. Our thought process for this building is it would be one tenant, and our current working plan is that that would be sufficient for possible tenant that would be there.
Okay, I would. just-
I understand
I'm
this.
just ask you have people, I'm sure, that are
Yes,
way more educated than I am on loading docks and warehouses, but I think that question needs to be asked because I
yes.
can think of the thing that might happen later, and I don't think we want to be involved in that.
So while we don't have any tenants for the building or anything else, what conversations and what we've looked at from a design internally is we believe the design we're presenting is going to be what gets built if our plan for the property proceeds to fruition. If it winds up that what we're thinking is gonna happen doesn't, we're still moving forward with the building, but say it winds up being, there's a couple tenants, like say 130,000 square foot tenant and another, yes, we may come back to the board and then ask for some additional docks. But rather than show all these docks there and build them, we would rather present what we hope and what we think is gonna happen than just, hey, we're gonna show all these docks and maybe we put them in, maybe we don't. So this is what we hope will be done there. But I fully understand what you're saying, yes, and there's other warehouse buildings we do, where we'll run the docks the whole way across, and then we'll have multiple tenants, but we've also run into a lot of times where we've built the dock, we've put in all these doors, then the tenant comes back and it's like, well, you got 14 doors, I need 3 doors on that side, I need 1 at-grade ramp here, and all of a sudden, we have a huge concrete area that like, we're no longer using, because what we're finding is even though the warehouse tenants are using like 60,000, 100,000, 150,000, unless they're a distribution center, they're not really using all of that dock space anymore. And they're really bringing in more, and then they do storage, and then it's bringing them a few trucks in and that. So we're trying not to spend unnecessary
Well,
money.
that's why I'm saying if you
Yeah.
put the 2 loading docks or 3 loading docks in the middle of that wall,
Yep.
then you can still have 2 tenants
Yes.
using 1 dock setup, but.
No, I
you know,
understand what you're saying.
Go
yes.
ahead, I'm done.
And backing up a moment, and looking a little closer at this too, the outline of the building placed into the parking lot area there. And in
Chuck,
regards to the,
Chuck, I can't hear you.
you're gonna get a different mic.
We are working on it.
It seems to be so close that with the loading docks, I don't see trucks maneuvering to unload. It seems to be so tight in there.
So the docks themselves are, I believe it's 75 feet just from curb line to face the building, which is longer than the truck itself. So then the truck has more than enough room. It's going to be able to come in and then back in. So we've run the truck turns on that, so we'll have sufficient room. to
I
back in.
think
If
it's
you
deceiving
look at-
because of the size of the building.
Pardon?
I think it's deceiving because of the size of the building.
Yes, no, it is.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to bring that up.
Yep, no, fully understand, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Bloss.
Well, he got us all going because I spent several minutes going through the prints and I said, I can't find the door.
Well, I do apologize for them not being on the elevation.
That's okay.
I will yell at the architect on the board's behalf.
It happened.
That's all for me.
The south elevation, the building's a nice looking building and it matches the other one. The south elevation has exposure coming in, the main entrance and exposure to Taft Road. I'm just wondering if we should dress that up a little bit more. I know you've got the windows on the left corner there, but bottom right,
Okay, so the bottom one?
yeah.
Yeah, we can see about, so yes, so this was the corner we were thinking would be facing the Taft Road entrance coming in. So when you come in from Taft Road, we were trying to kind of have a little bit of a feature there.
Yep,
And not. just
which is good,
wall.
but I think a
You're
little bit,
Thinking something more over here as well?
yeah,
Okay.
dress that up so it looks like a front as well.
Yeah, maybe we could, we'll talk to the architect and see. So it looks like on the other side facing SRC, we are taking this feature and kind of bringing it down. So you'd almost like to sort of see this elevation kind of match the one we're presenting towards the SOS building, so that these two were more similar.
Or more of the east elevation, the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying, yeah.
And then Neil or Mark, so we don't have a tenant going in here. We don't know what kind of traffic we're talking about. You know, this, we're close to 81, so that's good, but how do we judge that? And
You have a hard time judging that. You judge it based on the facility, but you don't know the tenant. So you may think like, well, we'll max out, but we don't know the tenant. I
Right.
kind of find it hard to believe that they don't know the
Yeah,
tenant.
yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry, Neil, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I did think there, some sort of sensitivity analysis needs to be done at the existing intersection to determine what sort of capacity it has available. And then we could look and consider some worst case analyses. I mean, if it's got, if it can take an additional 100 vehicles per hour and still work okay, then you're probably okay. If it's 20 vehicles per hour, well, maybe it's not. So I think we need to have some sort of, idea as to how the, I think most of the traffic is likely to go down to the Taft Road exit or entrance. near the,
81.
Gas station there.
yeah,
So I think most of your traffic's going to go through there. So I think at the very least, that intersection needs to be looked at to see what kind of, capacity we have available there. Because without a tenant, we don't know
right.
what's going to be there. But again, that sort of analysis would at least let you get an idea of as to how much traffic could be, and then think and look, see if that's within reason of what you might expect to have out of this facility. I'd
That
like to
works.
see some turning templates too of how the trucks access that dock, because it seems that they would have to back up from the entrance there, or from the road.
Yeah, so it was, so the truck would come in, pull up towards here and then back in there, yes.
And that's not great. I mean, I think, that's the main area for vehicles to get back to the tractors, or, well, I can't remember what the name of it is there, but
5-star.
5-star. We've got some other, I guess anybody who utilizes that area, obviously, it's not a great condition to have that. I don't know
Yeah.
if there's any way to separate that out of there, but that's not very good traffic circulation.
But that again depends on what's gonna go on in a building. I'm just thinking from what you guys have just said, what if this were a addition to SRC manufacturing and they manufactured in there and had 200 employees and had a lot of material going in and out of the building, then what you're saying, Mark, is absolutely correct. If we thought there wasn't gonna be a lot of truck movement, then maybe we could accept something a little bit less than ideal, but,
Yeah,
Good
well,
point.
and I don't know, maybe and again, I like the idea of the green space, separating the thing, but I mean, maybe that needs to be flipped and you need to have the truck movement not on that main, coming off that main drive there.
You can look at that.
I mean, we've looked at multiple layouts. We didn't think trying to keep kind of this as like a business development park. You got SRC, you got SOS, kind of putting the back end of a warehouse building, because it's also not then the same, because then this green space, it's not just the equivalent of flipping it. This green space all completely goes away, because then your front needs a parking field there, and it completely just starts to completely change. Even though it's just flipping the building, there's a big knock-on effect with
Yeah.
that. We can look at the truck turning.
Yeah, I know
Templates
that,
on that
I'm just not wild
as
about
well.
that. It really seems to cause a conflict, and again, that's the main access way, through this site. And you're gonna have trucks backing up in it. When was the traffic, or excuse me, the parking count study completed?
I don't have it date.
I guess
It was recent within like, the application.
November?
It was this year, so it was November?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so it was after your addition and.
Yeah, so
SOS
yeah, it
operating.
was after we had finished up,
Okay.
seeing all that. Yeah, we weren't taking what we had done 6 or 7 years ago when,
Okay.
for SRC, yeah, we had a new
All
one
right.
done.
Okay,
When
And
I
then
drove
question
through the
for you,
parking lot today, the whole area that they want to put this building was empty.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
And there was a lot of space in the rest of the lot, so
Yeah.
that part of is probably correct.
one question for the traffic study. So we'll do the main intersection here with East Half Road. They're going to be distributing traffic to other intersections though, because they won't just say all 100% goes there. If they're putting some of the traffic to these other intersections, are you going to be looking for the full analysis on all three of them then? Okay.
Yeah, but the truck traffic probably would come on and off 81, so they'd be going by the Circle K, where there's no light.
Well, they did take that light out of it, didn't they?
yeah. Wasn't it a blinking light?
What's that?
Where did they take the light out of? Where did you say they took the light out?
They're right by, when you're coming out of the driveway from this area, you go by Circle K, there's not a light to get you onto Taft Road.
The intersection of
No.
Taft and that main
No,
drive, there
it's
used
just-
to be a light there, but. I think
it's
gone now.
Church, yeah, it's a Church Street now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
No, that's all I have, Steve.
Yeah, yeah. Back to the occupancy or the tenant. It was my understanding, speaking with Mr. Berlio, that SRC was going to be the potential tenant of this. In fact, your subject line in your letter of intent refers to 60,000 square foot SRC tech expansion.
So then that's my fault because that's the template from the
From the
previous,
old-
from
the
the
old-
previous
old
letter,
one?
yes. We don't, we,
But I do recall that conversation when this was going to be for their use, I thought.
I don't have a signed lease for a tenant
Okay.
that, I don't have a signed lease for a tenant that I can say, I mean, what you're thinking is a logical thought for the property and that would be what our hope would be, because that's what makes sense. But we don't have any signed leases or anything for the building. Actually present. to the board.
So if this whole thing got approved, then you'd probably have a signed lease.
You have a letter of intent?
I don't believe we have any letters signed. We're actively working with tenants for the building, but we don't have anything in writing that I can present for it. Never makes my job that easy, but you know, I try to dance around as best I can.
Okay.
Steve, you set?
All set, thank you.
Neil?
I'm all set.
Mr.
Want to
Parrott?
Include traffic generation as something that might be going in there, in your traffic study, you could do that. No, nothing at this time. We'll take a full review and get you comments.
Thank you. Anything else for you?
Nope, so we'll do a traffic study to actually do 4 site access points. We'll look at the truck turning templates, and then we'll look at the north and south elevations of the building as well. That,
Well, again, I'm gonna be doing the detail.
oh, I know, there's no
We'll get
engineering
back.
comments. I'm just
Yeah.
saying more from like a general, like higher level overview, yes. That, I think that's all the main comments. Okay, perfect.
We got Paula Nertz with the fire department. He wants to speak on the issue.
Good evening, gentlemen. Fire department has a number of concerns, another large warehouse space where we don't know what's going to be stored inside. We're concerned, most of them are code compliance things. Their utility plan shows a 6-inch fire service that comes from the water line into the building and splits off 2 inches to domestic water, leaving only 4 inches for the fire service. When they determine the sprinkler demand for their building, that will drive the size of the fire main. That's one concern. It's a large building. I believe they're 419 feet. It's the distance on the long side of the wall. So the fire department will be asking, I haven't drafted a letter yet, but we'll be asking that they install a second hydrant on the southeast corner of the building. There's the one on the northwest corner. So we'd be asking for a second hydrant there. And it doesn't talk about elevation. I don't think it gets to 30 feet, so there's no real issue with access. of the roof of the building. And this is really none of my business, but I would have liked to seen the driveway as it comes from Taft Road to this building as part of the site plan so that we could understand how fire apparatus is gonna get around this building coming in from Taft Road. I don't think it's there. I didn't see anything that showed it,
Yeah.
which would also be part of
Yeah, I
your
guess
traffic
it's just
study, I think.
Kind of,
Yeah, I don't see that either.
We'll expand the overall site plan.
yeah, I mean, you can, it just comes straight down here. But, yeah,
That's really all I have at this time. Thank you
Okay.
for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll certainly want you to work with the fire department.
Yep, and just to, let the fire department know and then the board know, fire safety is a very big concern of Anderson's. Most of the warehouses we actually build nowadays, we don't have our sprinkler system because it's just a sketch plan right now. We haven't hired an architect yet for it beyond the elevations. We'll typically actually put in fire pumps and we'll actually do ESFR systems, which is early suppression, fast response. The code's kind of pushing for a lot of that with, as you get to the storage. So basically, it is the top of the line systems that we generally put in, and it's not something that we ever skip on in regards to the fire system, just to let the board know.
Good to know.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great night, everyone.
You do the same. The next item is also a sketch plan review. This is for proposed family eye care at Alta Drive.
Free dental care for everybody. I can't. That's right, the dentist's already there.
You can tell he needs glasses.
That's right. You gotta get out in the sun where you're getting kind of pale.
That's the only thing that wasn't in the original package, was kind of an exhibit.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Alex Wisniewski from LJR Engineering. I'm here tonight on behalf of Dr. Carrie Kutry, who owns Cicero Family Eye Care. She currently operates at 6197 Route 31. Are you familiar with in the Lakeshore Heights Plaza there next to the subway? She's looking to relocate into a standalone new structure in the Alta Business Park. And on that aerial I just handed out to you, you can see where it would be lot 6 of that subdivision. There's an access and utility easement that extends from Alta Drive that will serve both that parcel, and you may recall from a few years prior, there's another parcel that has frontage on 31 that Dr. Hammerschmidt owns still. And the intent is that would be a shared access point to serve that site as well, because they do not have access from Route 31. So the subject parcel is 0.88 acres in size. It's zoned general commercial. It's currently vacant and undeveloped. It generally drains to the south. On that image, north is to the right of the screen. The site generally drains north to an existing stormwater management facility that was previously designed and constructed to accommodate runoff from the entirety of this commercial development as well. All utilities are available to serve the site. The proposal calls for the construction of a 5,100 square foot office building. Again, as I said, access will come via Alta Drive. Mark, if you could maybe switch to the yes. Thank you. There's adequate parking for 25 vehicles. Hours, I guess maximum hours right now are projected to be Monday through Friday from 9 to 6 p.m. and Saturday from 9 to 1 p.m. And we're looking at a maximum of 10 employees at the building at any one time. We will extend water, sewer, gas, and electric services to the proposed building. The proposed grading will maintain the existing drainage patterns and allow water to runoff to continue to drain to the south to the existing stormwater management facility. You can see in the at the southern limits of the site, there's a town drainage easement that's designated, and that's part of that stormwater facility that ultimately wraps around the residential development and discharges out towards Lakeshore Road. We'll have both pole mounted and building mounted lighting, all modern LED, dark sky compliant fixtures. There's been a lighting plan prepared and submitted as part of the application package. You can see also we intend to maintain the wooded, there's an existing stand of vegetation, and you can kind of see it better on the aerial, that we're proposing to preserve as much of that as possible to maintain a buffer between the eye doctor office and the adjacent residential parcels to the south. We've also got a set of architectural drawings that I think are on your. Go to the second sheet. I think that kind of gives a perspective. So that's what the building is intended to look like. That's looking at the building from the northwest. So if you're standing basically at the access drive coming in from Elta Drive, that's the view from that angle. I know there's elevations in this package as well. I think the maximum height is 22.5 feet at that front corner. There's also a floor plan included with that package that shows the proposed internals of the building. The main entrance to the building will be on that western flank as you come in from the parking area. And then on the north side, there's a separate employee entrance that's intended to be served from the parking field that we proposed on the north side of the building. And then down in that lower left corner, which would be the southwest corner, that's just access to a utility room where the water supply and backflow prevention, et cetera, will be installed. The EAF that we prepared yielded no environmental concerns. I think I've covered everything I wanted to. I guess I'd like to offer up any questions.
Thank you, Alex. Mr. Duval?
So this will be a drive that will come off like the cul-de-sac and go into the facility. Right?
Yes, sir. This lot 6 and lot 7, which was Dr. Hammerschmidt's parcel to the north, both do not have access on a public highway. When the subdivision plan was approved by this board, the last amendment was back, I think, in 2010. The only means of egress is intended to come from Elta Drive, because when we did the original subdivision, New York State DOT took a strip of land without access across the frontage of the site. So there'll be no driveways ever to Route 31 from this development. So this is, so in addition to this site, there's the other adjacent remaining undeveloped parcel. And then in the southeast corner of the subdivision, Tony Alberici, who lives just behind it, purchased that land, I think, just to kind of maintain as a buffer. So it's unlikely that parcel will ever be developed. So this driveway, if and when lot 7, the one that fronts on Route 31, is developed, this driveway that my client's going to construct now will also be used to serve that future parcel, and they'll have a reciprocal access agreement that talks about sharing of maintenance costs and plowing, et cetera. But for now, she'll build that at her cost to serve her site until such time as that parcel ever gets developed.
Okay. As far as signage goes,
Yeah, if you go back.
just the one sign, or?
I think the architecture currently shows the potential for 2 building mounted signs, both on the north face and the east facade. I think the intent is to comply with the code, and they'll make a separate signage application for such. The only other signage that we anticipate, Mark, if you go back to my site plan, we felt it was necessary to identify, at least with some kind of directional signage. I showed just to the north of the access drive, a sign that would direct patrons to that, because it might, until people get
That's
used to
what I
it.
was wondering about.
Yeah, you know, I think initially you'll have great visibility from Route 31, but if and when something gets built in front, you're gonna lose that visibility. Hopefully by then, most of the customers are gonna know exactly where this site is and where to get out. But my office is right next to that building, so, you know, it's my hope that I don't get a lot of unintended traffic coming into my site and turning around. So we're gonna try to get that, you know, get some signage there to direct traffic. We've also proposed some lighting along that flank to get in the site. Coincidentally, because my client doesn't own that property, it's just an access and utility agreement. She's already discussed placing the sign where we show it with Dr. Saeed, who's the dentist that owns the parcel to the north there, and he's agreeable to what we're proposing. If you weren't gonna be agreeable as an alternative plan, we're gonna flip-flop that, and I would allow her to put her sign on my parcel to direct traffic to the rear. So one way or another, we'll get it covered. I think proposed an attractive landscaping plan as part of the package, kind of consistent with what you see in the development, and we're trying to, you know, maintain the look and feel that we've developed successfully in the business park there.
Okay, that's all I have for right now.
Mr. Abbey?
Well, it looks like you've been very thorough to this point. It looks very nice.
Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, it's a pretty complete package, so short of making revisions.
What I'm looking at is the parking to the north side of the building is, I assume, employee parking.
Yeah, we intend, I think there's 6 or 7 spaces along that flank that would be used primarily for employee parking.
But separate entrance there. And then the sign design, I don't know who did it, but it looks great.
Yeah, that's from IN Architects, Architects.
Yeah,
They do some pretty
Very
cool
unique.
stuff with their perspective drawings. I'll say.
Innovative.
Yeah,
Nice, thank you.
attractive building.
Mr. Snyder?
I love it. We're having a vendor that has business in our town is moving into our own facility. I think that's great. I think the drawings you show, the elevation you show are great. So I'm all for it. I love the fact that you've taken into account trees that are there that you're going to try to maintain. I think anytime we can do that, again, it's a plus for the area. So good job. And that's all I have for now.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Bloss?
I think it's a great project. I think it'll fit well, go well in town of Cicero and everything. Good use of that space. I like the fact that you'll leave some green space on the south side of that property. And that protects the, what's that road? Matt's,
Nate's?
Nate's Lane. It's a nice buffer between any business. So thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would concur with all the nice comments. And the buffer is important, and you mentioned as much as possible. I'd kind of like to clean up that language as
Yeah,
far
I've
as.
actually defined on the plan the limits of those
Okay.
wooded areas to remain, so that's specific.
All right. And then, so for lot 7, can you point out kind of where it is?
Yeah, so again, north is to the right of the screen. Lot 7 is immediately north of that site.
So it runs parallel the line
Same
on the
width,
west side?
same width all the way out to Route 31. It's slightly larger. It's a little more than an acre, I believe.
So would you anticipate the same type of layout as far as the drive-in and the parking and that kind of thing?
It's gonna be, it might be kind of like again, I don't know what that, I did look at the plans that Dr. Hammerschmidt had gotten. I don't know if he got them approved, but he went through the planning board until I think he realized that use wasn't gonna work in this area, but looking at his plans, I think he kind of had pushed his building, you know, closer to Route 31 for visibility purposes. But I think it'll be roughly a mirror of, you know, that's how I would lay it out. So it's generally a mirror of what we've done here. Probably, again, cheating the building forward towards 31 for visibility.
Yeah. The reason for asking is we got, I can't talk in term of my head, parking that goes right into the driveway, but it's real minimal. Mark, do you see a concern with that?
No, I mean, it's a dead end. I usually
Yeah.
really not getting anybody up there except for the businesses using those 2 buildings.
And I'd rather have it there than closer to the homes, so.
And especially if that's employee parking, which, yeah,
That,
it
that
wouldn't
is,
be high turnover.
yeah, that is the intent for those spaces to be employee parking, and we've intentionally situated those parking spaces to work well with that drive aisle, assuming in the future, one could mirror parking on the other side of that drive aisle to serve the future site.
Right.
But obviously, we wanted to do it in a manner where it's not going to impede, her business. But in the plans I saw from the Hammerschmidt drawings, he actually where our drive turns south into the first parking area, they had a similar situation where you would basically turn north into their parking field. So I think their traffic will be turning into their site well before you get close to that building.
Okay, that's all I have. Steve?
No, I think I'm all set for now. Thank you.
Neil? Mark, anything at this point?
No, nothing now.
Alex, anything else from you?
I think that's it. I assume this needs to get referred to SACPA.
It's already been sent
Already been sent.
for the
Perfect.
25th meeting. Yep.
And Mark, you'll give some comments and we'll work those out.
Yep.
Great.
All right. So I guess once I get things sorted out with Mark, I'll get that hashed out and then
We'll
resubmit,
visit again.
come back at that point.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. And we got the last item on the agenda. This is for a zone change recommendation to the town board from regional commercial to PUD. This is the Gabberley development that's been in front of us a few times now. It's the property at 8016 Brewerton Road.
Have a half-size copy of the colored plan that will be shown. So you don't have to flip through the larger set. Thank you. The one on top is the old plan that we looked at as a preliminary development plan in December. The one behind it is the newly updated plan. So good evening. Thank you. My name is Brian Bouchard with CHA Consulting, project engineer working on behalf of the applicant. Tim Haskins with Gavel Rye Development, who's the applicant, is also with me this evening. Just a quick overview. So this is 8016 Brewerton Road. It's approximately 35 acres behind the existing auto dealership. This is Echo Park now. It used to be Sun Auto. Just to briefly describe the process that we've been through so far, this is a zone change from the existing zoning of regional commercial to a planned unit development to allow a town center, village style setting of a residential community with a mix of various apartments, including both multifamily and senior living, along with various amenities such as the clubhouses, play areas, et cetera. The zoning request is to allow, as we talked about before, less intense use by essentially converting the 35 acres of heavy commercial allowable uses to a residential community that's basically within walking distance to all the shops that we know are around there, retail stores, restaurants, et cetera. We provided this board at their request, various studies throughout the course of last year. From the traffic studies, we did a retail use comparison, comparing the PUD to the retail use that would be entitled, along with taking a look at the US Route 11 corridor study and kind of going through that and comparing our proposed project as a residential project to that corridor study and the similarities. And essentially the project will help to fill a much needed gap in residential housing with a variety of different apartment types, right? So there's different renters that could utilize the different apartment types that we're offering here, right? So you have families to young professionals, empty nesters, et cetera. And the way that the project is set up, which is exactly how we had discussed it before, is that the southern half, basically south of this main access drive, is the multifamily project that we call the Apex. To the north would be the senior project, which would be the second phase to be constructed after the multifamily has been constructed. And that's the senior project we're referring to as the Marquee at Metro North. So where we were is that the preliminary development plan was submitted to this board. We looked at it last year. Our original application, as you recall, was for 400 residential units on the entire property. After a very long dialogue, we came in with a revised application of 300 units, significantly reducing the size and density of the project. Also acquired options for some additional land with that 2 acres that was previously reserved for the seller. All culminating in December, basically, with this board's recommendation on that preliminary plan, which included 4 items. The 4 items was that the density was not to exceed 278 units. The second was that the maximum height of building would be 3 stories, with exception of the 2 buildings that we talked about, which are referred to as the flats. These are 4-story buildings. They have garages across the entire first floor and 3 stories of living above it. The third was that the entrance road up to the cross access would become public, built to town standards, and that the board found it reasonable to require 2 parking spaces per unit within the development. Since that time, the next step essentially in the zone change process is to take those recommendations of the preliminary development plan and create the detailed development plans. So what has been submitted is a full set of construction documents separated by project. We have 2 sets of documents, one for phase 1, which is the multifamily project, and the other for phase 2, which is the senior project. The 4 items that we were given as far as the recommendation have all been met. We've reduced the project again from the 300 units to the 278 that the board recommended, reducing the, or essentially increasing the land mass and reducing the overall density per unit of land that we have. We've also met all the recommended heights. We haven't changed anything there. Everything around the periphery of both projects are 2-story garden and townhome style apartments. The senior is still the 3-story building with parking on the front. And we still have the 4-story buildings on the flats that we discussed with garage parking. The entrance road has been built or is designed to be constructed to town standards. One clarification, and we talked about this before, is that our drawings still show dedication of the cross access so that the town could potentially control whatever development might happen to Widewater. So we've shown both the entrance road and the cross access road being built to the town's standard for road construction. And again, this is the cross access to Walmart, which is to the side of the building there. To the south is Widewater's. It's reserved for future connection, obviously, when hopefully something gets developed back there. And we've also still maintained the ability to connect to the Fairview Ave side, so that those residents, obviously there's no reason for anybody to go into that residential development, but there would be a significant benefit for those residents to be able to come out to the proposed signalized intersection at Route 11. We've also met the 4th recommendation, which is a parking requirement. The overall project as a whole has 2.1 spaces per unit. This is inclusive of surface parking, garage parking. Everybody has 1 garage and everybody has 1 driveway space. It's weighted a little bit differently based on the senior project and the multifamily project, which we talked about a little bit. Senior project is 1.8 parking spaces per unit, and the multifamily project is slightly more with 2.3 spaces per unit there. So aside from addressing the 4 recommendations, obviously the full detailed development plans, the packet that you have, is inclusive of the full grading, drainage, and stormwater analysis and design. We've included the landscaping and lighting. We've also added all the pedestrian connections and details for cross access, sidewalks, full circulation throughout our site, full circulation to the cross access points, and a full sidewalk all the way out to Route 11. We've included access roads for fire apparatus to the taller buildings, erosion and sediment control, site construction, and we have sent PDFs of the building elevations and floor plans electronically to Mark, which he has to queue up. The very minor changes, so again, the handout that I gave to you, the top plan is the preliminary development plan, and the plan behind it is the detailed development plan that includes all those aspects that I talked about. A few things that you noticed did change to benefit the project are the townhomes on the multifamily project were flipped. Previously, we had driveways going out to that cross access road. That was a major safety concern as we started to look at the ability for people to eventually go across that cross access road and not having people back out onto that road. And the other change is that for the multifamily project, we had the clubhouse positioned adjacent to the wetland before. That was an idea when we had more of an expansive project. And we've relocated that to be more in the center of the multifamily project now that it's been reduced, and also has good visibility from the main entrance road coming in. The garden department was also flipped so that each one of these buildings around the outside face the green space to the back. So with exception of that, again, we believe we've addressed all of the board's recommendations in detailing the detailed development plan. Mark provided some initial input as far as a review of that set, to which we responded primarily to like the stormwater design and aspects of various technical components of the drainage analysis. So with that, open it up to comments and questions that you might have.
Mr. Duval.
Yeah, where the L-shaped is, that's what the side where the senior apartments are, correct?
Correct. Everything north of the center access road will be phase 2, which is the senior project. The L-shaped building is a 3-story building, typical apartment building. And the smaller buildings around the periphery are more garden style apartments. The tiny little squares that you see would be outboard garages, in addition to the surface parking that we have
And
there.
that's phase 2.
Correct.
Okay. And on the other side is phase 1.
Yep.
All right, and wherever we see green, that's what you consider your green space?
Correct.
Okay. Seems kind of tight, all of it, but I guess that's all I have right now.
Mr. Abbey.
I was curious, for example, in the lower left buildings, for example, on the west side from that building, or is it little porches? Like.
Correct. So these are very much a residential looking building, right? They all have asphalt shingled pitched roofs. They all have front porches, and they all have back patios. So everything off the back of the building, each unit has their own patio. There'll be a small concrete square, and from there to the fence line for each building varies between 22 and 27 feet essentially for that back lawn area.
So you're saying from the edge of the patio, for example, over to, there's a fencing along behind that?
Yeah, on both sides, we've included a fence essentially just to give some privacy to that cross access road. But yeah, there's 20, on that particular building, there's 22 feet. In the building next to it, there's 27 feet from, your sliding glass door to the fence line for yard and patio area.
Is there also a sidewalk along that stretch?
Correct, yep.
And the sidewalk is which side of the fence is that on?
Well, the fence will be the private side with the yard and the patio, and on the outside adjacent to that cross access road would be the sidewalk.
And another figure I haven't really heard is, when and if the project is completed, what's the estimate on how many adults would be into a full capacity?
Adults as opposed to families and children, or
Correct.
just
As opposed to
people?
children, potential drivers for one thing.
I guess that's a hard question to answer, right? So these types of units can cater to a wide variety of people. They're very different than some of the other typical 3-story buildings that are, you only have your little unit upstairs and you get in your car and leave. This has, like we said, back patios and things, so it could cater to a lot more families that would have children. But as far as drivers go, there's within the multifamily project, the majority of the units are 1 and 2 bedrooms, and there are 3-bedroom units. So most of the units presumably would have 2 cars, even if I guess it may be the 1-bedroom unit could have 2 cars. And that's why we had talked previously about 2 parking spaces being the garage space and the driveway space to make sure that there's enough room for the cars. Yep.
So you could generally average 2 adult drivers per unit average.
Correct. You could say, yeah, 2 cars per unit, right?
And if you take 278 times 2, that's We're pushing 700 people.
Correct. And so, yeah, I mean, the parking was provided within the parking table that we have, right? So, you know, we have 585 total spaces for the project.
Okay.
You know, when you look at the multifamily project in particular, it's 150 units. So as we're saying, you know, 2 per unit would be 300.
Sure.
That project has 352. So there is an excess to kind of accommodate,
Well, that's a good thing.
yeah, people coming in and out. And then the senior project is a little bit different, because you may not bring your Maserati and your Ferrari to the kind of, you know, the senior style, but there is a mix of garages, surface parking, and then the driveway parking, for a total of 233. So there is, you know, almost 600 spaces for the, I guess, the whole project, 558 spaces. So.
Okay, thank you.
I guess if we're talking about that, we should point out that this count includes the garages. And the other space that's associated with it is a space directly in front of that garage. In I think all cases, is that correct, Brian?
Correct.
Yeah, so the board needs to interpret this whether or not they want to include the garages as a parking space.
In the
I
past,
think
we
this
have
is-
not under that circumstance.
Right, I mean, this has been a discussion point. I think that it's been pointed out that the applicants indicated that they put in requirements, covenants, whatever we want to call them, in their leases and rental agreements, that those areas cannot be used for storage and need to be used for parking. But underneath our typical definition, the garage space, because it's you know, blocked by another space that's ostensibly being counted as a parking space, would not count. Now, this is a PUD, and you can vary from what we typically do, but the board needs to make a decision as to whether or not that's something that they feel is reasonable.
Yeah, and again, this isn't new. We haven't taken away surface parking and added the garages. The discussion that we had in the past with the preliminary plan was very extensive. I think every time we talked about parking, and, you know, we had conversation about the garages in a typical RM type district. And
I'd like to say that that's not fair to say, because I think when you say you haven't taken away any, this was your previous plan, and you had a lot more surface parking spaces than you do in this plan, where you only have the surface parking spaces.
Yeah.
So I don't
No, that's fair.
I don't think it's fair to say that you're.
No, I
you're
agree with you.
presenting this exactly like you were.
It's not fair at all.
I agree with the statement that some of the excess surface parking has been removed, but I was referring to the statement about having a garage space and a driveway space for every unit. That has been consistent amongst all of our iterations of the plan.
We did talk about a garage space being able to be counted, but I don't think we meant for one that was going to be blocked by the only other space as being counted.
It hasn't been shown any other way. We've always had driveway spaces, garage spaces, and surface parking spaces. And this is very similar to what we've also talked about within the Deerfield multifamily project, which is out in Utica as well. Each multifamily residential apartment has a single lane driveway and a garage space for each apartment unit.
Do you think this looks like Deerfield?
It does. Yeah, me and Tim went through this today and I was a little confused. So Deerfield is the multifamily side of that project. These buildings are longer. Those buildings vary, I think, 4 or 6 units each, and they each have a garage and a driveway space. The longer building,
Green space.
the longer building that you see is the senior project, which is Skylar Commons. And that's very similar to what we've done with the 3-story. That does, the 3-story building on the senior project does not have garage parking. It's all surface parked.
Does Utica have any flat type units?
This is the first time that we've done the flat style units. And, you know, it's partially, as we've talked about, with having the ability to give one garage to each tenant. And not, because the other option, as we talked about, is to take up more impervious area and have more area dedicated to surface parking, as opposed to the amenity of having a garage, which we understood was a benefit. And why it was included, I guess, in the recommendation, specifically to allow those to have first floor garages, right?
Chuck, were you still going?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Mr. Snyder?
Well, maybe the word never shouldn't be used by me, but I will not approve what is here right now. The only thing you've really done is you reduce the total number of units based on what we said we wanted to see. We never agreed that a driveway space and a garage equals 2 parking spots. That would drive me crazy. And in fact, the way your layout is let's say that my wife is going to work after me. My car's in the garage. I pull her car out, she pulls it out. She can't put it anywhere on the street because there is no street. There's little tiny curbs or whatever. And so then that means that individuals got to drive the car back on the driveway after the first lever for the day goes. I mean, it's just absolutely, it's inconceivable that we do that. So unless you do something different with the parking in the situation, I've never recommended the town board that we do a PUD because all we're gonna do with a PUD is screw the people that are in these units. The other thing that you showed on the first plan, but you don't show on the second one, you have a building there instead. We show the future cross access being a loop, and the loop looks a little stupid, but the reason the town engineer suggested that was because then you would line up with what is the end of the buildings in the Walmart Plaza. You wouldn't end up in the middle of the back of a building. So you've now eliminated the ability of us being able to do that. And we actually had that as part of the requirement of this project because we wanted at least 2 big ways in as it relates to fire and emergency. We don't want them having to necessarily scoot through the Lincoln area as a second entrance. You know, the green space is gone. I mean, I have some green space where these 2 buildings are, where we added the acreage to. Well, no, I take that back. I was looking at your first drawing. On the second drawing, there is no green space on those 2 buildings. The other buildings that are.
Which 2 buildings? No green space?
The two buildings are right there. Those 2 that are.
On the left there.
They're,
Pointer?
I guess you have a little bit of green in front of the front door. You can't put your car on what is that driveway between the 2 buildings because you'll block somebody's driveway garage. And meanwhile, we've got this other big chunk of land that's not on the drawing anymore. So what we're doing, we're compressing this thing. Well,
So it sounded like there was 3 comments, right? You were very strongly worded with respect to surface parking as opposed to a garage. Again, that was purposeful on our part to be able to provide a garage to each tenant. With respect to the cross access to Walmart, I don't think we've actually settled on anything. We've shown it both ways and offered it both ways. We've also talked about how difficult it would be for somebody to make that, what I think you were suggesting was a preferred option, which is an S shape, and basically discharge you to the loading dock of Walmart. We felt it was more appropriate to run straight.
the way you show it here, you're not going to, you're on the first drawing that you gave us today, which was the old plan. That little curve was going to end up going to the end of the plaza. The east end is where that goes. It doesn't go to the Walmart loading dock.
There is a loading dock. that comes
That's
off.
all of the
But not-
Walmart's loading dock.
But this point, because I think I walked it, this point was actually going to be, and that's why I think
There's a
Kate
drive
said,
aisle next to it.
it's a drive aisle.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
goes out beside the end of the building.
And so what I was going to say is that it was purposeful to change it back to being straight. Because in this way, if you're going to use this cross access, you basically end up at the building and it's a T intersection where you could turn right and choose to go around the loading docks, or you could turn left to go around to the front of the store where we all usually come in. It would also avoid kind of the S-shaped curve that we had there. So functionally, and we, you know, during our sewer conversations, I think may have talked to Kate about the two different options and how either of them made sense, but that maybe it made more sense to approach that building with a T intersection and choose to either go left or right, rather than forcing people directly to go behind that loading dock area where there is currently no cross traffic, right? And as far as green space, you know, you are exactly correct. This is what we've done, right? We've taken the landmass that we've had and essentially created a cluster development where we've consolidated the development into a smaller footprint to reduce impervious area. And we've left and reserved the green space in a completely separate part of the project, which ends up being across from the wetlands. You know, they are smaller little pockets and they're also directly adjacent to 81. So it makes sense with the reduction in units that we have to use a more consolidated footprint and avoid placing, for instance, one of these buildings, you know, closer to the highway, right? There was also talk about the town coming in and potentially using that for some type of future access, which I don't think is technically feasible without a lot of work in relationship to wetlands and things, but that would severely limit the ability to even develop, you know, what we were showing before on that side. So it is very purposeful, right? We've described this to you numerous times, the town center. It's a village style setting where the buildings are very close, just like if you walk down the village in North Syracuse, right? There's sidewalks along every front of the building. And it encourages walkability, right? You have the clubhouse that's front and center. Somebody doesn't have to, you know, walk too far to get to the clubhouse. We also looked at the zoning table. This particular district currently allows for 40% building coverage, right? This is the RC district. If it was to be a big box store, for instance, you'd be allowed 40% building coverage. The RM district, which is the entitled multifamily district, allows for 30% building coverage. Our building coverage on this site is 19%. So it's about half of what you could do commercially here, and it's about 2/3 of what you'd be allowed to do in a multifamily district. So building coverage and lot coverage wise, it's very much in line with the other districts and even better than what you would get if this was to be a commercial development. You know, kind of interesting because obviously this was going to come up. I kind of put together this. This is the entire multifamily project placed within the limits of the asphalt paving area of Walmart, directly to our north. So realizing that, yes, we've consolidated this development to have it more, you know, dense in terms of lot coverage on this particular spot. But there's much more green space within the areas for the back patios and things than you would be looking at if you were to compare it to either Wegmans or Walmart was what we were trying to represent there. So,
Say that again.
Green space for what?
Say that. Do that again. Run that one. I don't understand what you just said.
When somebody walks out of the patio to some green space.
right, this is a completely different housing product than you would see of some of the other ones, right? Like we worked on Toco Villaggio. All of those units, you have your unit, but you don't have any of the amenities like a parking garage, a driveway space, or a back patio.
What do you mean you don't have it?
You don't essentially have a back patio on some of those, right?
No, but you have a pad, you have a deck.
You have a deck,
you
sure,
have
a small
garage,
deck,
You have
yeah.
garages or surface parking.
Some of them have garages, some of them don't, right? The
No.
3-story buildings, yeah.
There's garages behind every building of all 4 buildings that are built.
Right,
Gotta be careful. That's my apartment complex. So
Yeah.
I'm sort of, you know, I kind of know what it is there.
right. The style of this building is much different than most of the 3-story buildings that have been built there, which are the same footprint, right? We're trying to have different housing products. They're all 2-story, the most of them, right? The ones around the periphery are mostly 2-story and have patios and garages and driveway space. What I'm trying to say is it's more mimicking a residential, it's a mix between apartments and a single family home, I guess, more so than having all 3-story buildings throughout the site with surface parking everywhere.
I don't understand what you did when you gave us this drawing. What did you say this proved? Or
It's
didn't
an
prove?
example of what we are looking at in terms of the landmass that we have. Essentially, that whole project fits within the parking lot of Walmart, which is just to our north. Right, the
No,
building
there's
of,
there's a hell of a lot more buildings on your plan that you gave us than that are shown there.
the multifamily project itself.
Same number. Same number. So I don't know what your point is, but let's.
We talked
let's
about
move
green
on.
space, right? So that's very much a sea of asphalt. And what I was trying to prove is that we can fit a residential development with roads, patios, porches, and the landscaping that we do have, basically within the confines of an asphalt parking area that's just to the north of us.
I'm done, Mark.
Mr. Bloss?
When you calculated your green space, just run that by me one more time. What was the percentage?
So for building coverage, right?
Let me just interrupt. When you
Yeah.
do this, are you including the green space on the other side of the creek?
That was the next part of the question right there. Are you including the complete lot size that you show us on that drawing, which it listed here as undeveloped open space, and there's 2 of those. Did you use that as a whole and calculated the green space?
We have 3 different ways that we've described it on the plan. One is for the overall PUD, one is for the multifamily project, and one is for the senior project. In the RM district, the total building coverage, which is different than impervious space, but the total building coverage is, or in the RC district is 40%. The entitled district, which is the RM that we've comparing ourselves to, is 30%. The overall PUD does include all of the landmass there minus town right-of-ways and wetlands. And that is 20%. So it does include the green space that's on the other side, which again is purposeful, right? You take a cluster development where you develop part of it and part of it is reserved as green space, walking trails, et cetera, right? The actual coverages, the senior apartments is 16% because that includes both of these large green pieces here. So building coverage is much less, it's 16%. The multifamily is 25%, so it's still less than the allowable RM district for building coverage, which is just this piece here on this side of the wetlands, if you could see the property line for phase 1.
That answers that part of the question. You had to utilize that green space to meet the requirements.
No, that's incorrect. So the multifamily project is just right here. It's south of this access road, and see this dark dash
Yeah,
line?
I understand.
This building coverage is 25%, which is less than the 30% allowed in the other RM district. The senior piece includes the rest of the residual land, which brings this senior piece down to 16%. As a combined project, though, it's 19%.
The other question I got is, it shows on here the proposed cross access, which would get you from the main entrance to this project. It would take you into Fairview Avenue and then Central Avenue and Lincoln Avenue. You said, well, that way the people would have, the residents in that little cul-de-sac would have access to the main street, whatever they call that street in there, to the signal. Well, I think it's going to work the other way for you. Anybody that wants to come out of that complex is going to go to Fairview Central Avenue and go and try to exit Lincoln Ave. They're rather than wait for the signal light that would be at the end of, what's the name of that road? Somebody help me out.
It's just an access road now.
Okay, the access road.
Point well taken. So we could take any position, right? We could choose, if the town tells us to, that it's not in the best interest of the town, don't build the cross access.
Yeah, let me just short circuit the discussion on this. So the town engineer is working to get with the neighbors in that area, I believe, to discuss what their desires are for this cross access. And ultimately, I suppose that's really what it should be, since they're the ones who are affected. You know, what being looked at is potentially an exit only, or one way only, so that they could exit into, from their neighborhood onto this access drive. Okay, you could sign it, local traffic only. You know, the complaint generally is, especially from everybody through there, is that getting in and out of onto Route 11 is difficult. And because of the amount of traffic, the access to the signalized light, safer access. So that's what the purpose of that cross access is. And to say that someone wants to cut through that neighborhood and get out onto a non-signalized intersection, they're certainly not going to do it if they're going south, right?
Not south.
Maybe if they're going north, but I don't see a whole lot of benefit to that. But again, but that's the purpose of talking to the neighbors and saying, do you want, what do you want? What do you want to see this be? So that'll get hashed out through discussions with the neighborhood. And ultimately, it's actually the town board's decision. As to how
I drove it today and I agree with what you, just about everything you're saying. But you're gonna see people from that complex go, if they think there's a half a shot, it's 20 seconds that they can save, they'll use it.
Yeah, and agreeing with Mark, the developer's position is that we would build anything that the town feels is most appropriate, and we've talked about each option. You know, even leaving it as a crash gate for emergency access or a one-way out only, so that it could have a bend, so that nobody's trying to cheat the one way, so. it's perfectly
I agree with Mark. We need to talk with the people that live there.
Mhm.
Do you like the idea? Don't you like the idea? That's all I've got.
So you had shown us the Utica property. Do we have that by chance?
There was an aerial submitted for our old presentation.
And when you compare that, while Mark's looking for it, to what we have here, they clearly are not the
Yeah,
same
and,
thing.
and so I'd said this before, I mean, we weren't trying to cookie cutter that project with this project, right? There's different site constraints. That's a totally different area. It's not bookended by a Walmart and a Wegmans. So the product here was meant to be more of a project that fits within the context of our commercial area that we have in terms of both density and the consolidated layout. That project is in a much different area, but it was used to represent the building types and some of the things that we've talked about indirectly. But yeah, not to just misunderstood that we were trying to pick that project up, because obviously it does have more green space than what we're trying to do here in the middle of Route 11. Sure.
Yeah, so when I saw that and I saw what people can walk out of their sliding glass door and they're gonna have a little bit of yard and that's nice. There's none of that here. No, I shouldn't say none, very little.
Mhm.
And, you know, clustering can be a good thing. But I think in this case, it's making this part way too dense. And it includes the parking, right? Because we've talked about the driveway, the one-car driveway that leads to the garage, and you want to count those two spaces. That's not good planning. It's not going to work. And then when you look at the land that's encumbered by driveway or roadway or building or wetland or water management, there's nothing left for the residents, nothing. It's not, in my mind, a good plan.
So again, the same statement from me is that there is, right, I calculated it before I came. There's between 22 and 27 feet off the back of any of the townhomes that we have, townhomes and garden style apartments. You know, that's enough area to have a patio and a back lawn outside of your apartment. Again, they're not single family homes where we have quarter acre lots for each individual unit. But there is backyard space that's private for each individual unit.
So if a kid lives in one of the apartments, where's he gonna go out and play? with
We
his-
have a pool, we have a basketball court, we have a playground, we have a clubhouse.
When he walks out of the sliding glass door, what's he get?
There's a backyard. Again, this
is?
isn't meant to be a single family home where you have, a 50 by 50 area in your back lawn to throw a ball, right? They are apartments, but there's a variety of space to use, right? It's not just going to be families and kids that live here either. There's people that don't want to maintain their own lawn and we'll mow it for them. So it's a smaller space. It's an apartment. Very different than being able to provide a huge back lawn to throw a ball for every unit, I guess, right?
Well, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting some little greenery or the senior complex where they walk out of their apartment and they're in a swell.
Yeah, we do have a network of trails around the stormwater management area. Each one of the doors that egress from the larger building were purposefully flipped into the center space so that you could walk out the back of the building, walk the sidewalk to the clubhouse and enjoy your patio and amenities within the clubhouse. Definitely not, there is a dog park there and there is a bocce ball court, but definitely not trying to provide a baseball field for the senior either, so.
I think that if we were utilizing the entire acreage that was involved here, when you're doing your calculations, that the layout would have been much more appropriate.
Okay.
Steve?
I'm saying, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll just point out a couple of things. In regard to the statute of what you would have to actually find to recommend this, and just two things based on the discussion I was listening to. One of the things you were talking about is the surrounding, talking to the neighbors about the surrounding areas. One of the things in the statute, it says you will have to make a determination that it will not be detrimental to the present and potential surrounding uses. In regard to the parking in the statute, I'm going to just read from the statute, that the proposed development as it is proposed to be completed must contain required parking spaces, landscaping, utility areas necessary for creating a sustaining a desirable and stable environment. So those are completely within your purview.
Thank you. Mark?
I think you covered a lot of the items. I guess the thing I want to just point out that we haven't really discussed are these flat units. Because the area around those are essentially all pavement. And overall, again, the density on this, this project's been discussed, but and it hasn't been discussed, but snow removal. Particularly in this area here, really almost everywhere, okay? They've done a nice job providing a walkable community. I will give them that. There's plenty of pedestrian facilities, sidewalks, so there's good walkability. But with the snow removal, and the answer is always this, right? It's going to be trucked off the site, right, and removed from the site. That's going to happen on the first snowfall here, or else you're not going to be able to get around. Because there is no place reasonably to accommodate the amount of snow that needs to be removed. Because in between, again, I'll just point to the flat areas. It's all got to, this all has to be clear. There is nowhere there to store snow except for these little bump outs on each of the corners. And that's certainly not going to be adequate after one snowfall, if one. And we all know how snowbanks get around here. So this does not provide adequate accommodations for snow removal, except to truck it off. And you could look at these other areas, again, in between. And there is no space for, except potentially down in here and over here, same area on the south border, in this area for snow to be stored or removed. So snow removal is a big issue here. And again, I know what the answer is going to be, but again, is that sustainable?
I have a different answer, I guess, and a different way to look at that. I don't think we have to haul it off site, obviously, but a couple statements, right? Around the entirety of the project, where there aren't driveways, there is a 5-foot snow shelf, right? So between the sidewalk and the street, there's a 5-foot snow shelf. So it could, I guess to say that it, the first time it snows an inch or two there will be room to put that type of snow, right? The area within the flats, and we've talked about this, obviously, this developer is not developing this and selling it to somebody else to be their problem. We're developing it and we're using his guidance on operations and maintenance to drive some of these discussions that we've talked about. You know, what we have here is a 26-foot wide driveway with, or 26-foot wide drive aisle with essentially a parking space as a driveway. This arrangement is really no different than if these didn't have garages, you would have a driveway with an 18-foot parking space on both sides of it, right? You know, they have the ability to utilize different snow equipment, whether it's a snow blower for between the cars and the driveways, but essentially this area is a problem that Mark identified because you will have to push east and west to get it out to the main driveways and push it south. These areas are fairly large. They're about 27 feet in width and, you know, somewhere on the order of, I think, 284 feet and 200 feet here. So, you know, 30 feet in width, that could be a pretty big pile of snow, at least for a month or so, right? And then a front end loader is going to take it, pick it up, not put it in a dump truck and haul it off site somewhere else. They could pick it up and come put it in one of our stormwater management areas. or-
No, they
They
cannot
can't?
do that. Stormwater management areas are not to be used for snow,
Is it-
snow removal.
Is that
Yes,
specific to the town or to the DEC?
no, that's DEC.
So I specifically read guidance today from the DEC from 2017 that covered both upland snow removal and direct discharge snow removal.
I'll give it to you. I didn't read it, but that's my understanding is that stormwater management areas are not to be used for snow removal. And you can't put it into bioretention areas and those things.
Yeah, the bioretention areas were definitely a problem before. And as we looked at some of those regs, you know, this area did become available. So
I'll look into that guidance.
the snow storage was more of a problem before, when we did have a more expansive stormwater network of bioretention areas and things that have to have native plants and other things in it. But this is an operation item that the ownership is obviously comfortable with based on the area that we have, right?
Where have these flat units been built before?
So this particular building, I don't believe has been built.
No, the flats units is.
But again, if we didn't have garages, right, and this was a 4-story apartment building, we would have parking, 18 feet parking spaces, 26-foot drive aisle and an 18-foot parking space, no different than what's shown here. If we were,
But you don't have the green area around it, okay? You say that, but that isn't this. You've got green areas and those types of things on these sites where that can be done. You don't here. And, you know, the other thing, again, these haven't been built, you know, we haven't looked at the architectural elevations, but essentially you're looking at a garage and a door, a garage and a door, a garage and a door, you know, at the ground level.
Excuse me, Tim Haskins with the developer. Just one of the things I want to clear up. When we came to the town and talked about our project in Utica, which was Deerfield Place and Schuyler Commons, and we said we wanted to create a sister project to that. We didn't mean we were taking that project and dropping it here. We meant we were taking a product type and a community style and a lifestyle, and we were recreating it in this market. That doesn't mean it's an exact cookie cutter. If you went back to our original plan of 400 units, you would have noticed a lot more likelihood to what you saw at Deerfield with a lot more lawns and green space and those types of things around it. But in order to meet some of the requests of this board and of the town council as well, we agreed to reduce the unit count and to pull all of our development to the west side of the wetlands in order to reserve that area on the east side of the wetlands for potential future roadway for the US 11 corridor study, which we were told was a concern of people on the town council.
Well, that roadway wasn't going to take that entire parcel.
No, but,
You moved that on your own. We didn't tell you to do that.
well, but that was our give and take was we will come to this side, we will reserve that for what future interest to the town, reduce our unit count, which we reduced by 25%. And we did have numerous discussions about the parking and with a garage for every unit and a parking space in that driveway for the other resident in that apartment. You can say we didn't, we did, we can go back and listen to the minutes. We talked about it numerous times.
I don't think you'll ever hear anybody say they like that.
Well, they didn't say they liked it, but they didn't say we couldn't do it or couldn't include it in our count. And we are fully designed based upon your recommendations. Is this a compact cluster development? Yes. Is it a walkable development? Yes. The products here, you ask about what do you see when you come out of the outside of it. First of all, the garden style apartments are one-story apartments and second-story apartments. If you're on the second story, you walk out, what do you have? Your balcony, that's it. We rearrange the building so that those balconies overlook the green space, the wetlands, the green spaces. If you're on the first floor, same thing. You walk out, you've got a balcony or a patio with a rail around it. So you don't have a backyard in those units. We don't have a backyard in the units at Deerfield. It's the same situation. The townhomes over on the left hand and the buildings up at the top, yes, they have a small backyard, 27 feet, which is for a urban style setting townhome is a pretty big backyard. And they have a patio and they have that 20, and that's the same thing we have at Deerfield for the townhomes there. When you look at the senior portion, the garden style apartments are 3-story elevated apartments with surface parking, and the resident has the option to rent a garage. We have designed the same thing here as what we had at Skyland. We have a central courtyard with sidewalks that lead to the clubhouse, which is the heart of the community. That's where the community goes for their recreation. And then we added the townhomes because that is a new product that the younger, more active senior is looking for before they go into an elevator. And those, same thing, they have a garage, they have a small backyard. It's a very clustered development, but it's going to be a beautiful development. It's going to be an active development. And it's going, the green space is going to be enjoyed all around it by all of those residents, not just between the townhomes. So we've worked very hard to work with this board to create a viable community, a vibrant community that agrees with the recommendations you've given us. And, you know, we would never have come back to you with this parking count had you told us you were not on the same page with us about the driveways and garages. I would never have let Brian go down that path. We sat here and had those discussions with you. We based this entire design, the initial design was based upon the same thing.
Do you think that makes good planning? To have a car in the garage and a car in the driveway, and the only way to get that car out of the garage is to back the car in the driveway out to the road?
It's what our residents do.
Do you think that makes good planning?
It makes usable planning. It's what our residents at Deerfield do. It's what you do in your own private home. If you have more than 2 cars or more than 2-car garage, if somebody's you park in your garage and you park in your driveway. And if somebody needs to get out of the garage, you go move your car. That's what you do in your home. It's no different here. And it's an operational issue of which we know how to manage. And if it didn't work, then our residents aren't going to rent it. They're going to say it's too big of a hassle. People aren't buying these, we're renting them to them. We're managing it on a day-to-day basis. And that's what we do, and we do well. And if you go talk to our residents at Deerfield, you'll find they have no complaints. They're very happy to have a garage. You know how many apartments you can rent that have garages? Very few. You've got the Bellagio here, which is a unique product. You don't see that very often. We came here with the idea, let's give everybody a garage. Let's get everybody's car out of the weather. Let's get everybody to be able to access their apartment without having to tromp through the snow. And we've done it. but we need your help. These are smart development ideas. If you look anywhere in the country, this is the type of stuff that's being done. And we've worked very, very hard with this.
The snow removal situation is smart.
The snow removal, we've known since we came here, day one, snow was gonna be a problem. That's why we said, let's give everybody a garage. So they don't, we will be the ones who deal with the snow, not the resident. While the resident's sleeping, we're gonna be out clearing for them. If we need, you can see that every time I talk to Brian, I said, snow storage. Where are we pushing the snow? We push it out and this way. We push it down towards the dog park. There's a lot of area down past the dog park.
So you're gonna push it from here to where?
There, it goes out and this way. So it goes out to the sides and it comes down to the south.
Here,
Yes.
in this little spot?
If we don't have enough room, then as Brian said.
And
we
all of
will-
this?
We will deal with it.
And all of the,
But that's our issue as a
the
manager.
fact that you say that doesn't mean it's gonna work. There's no way that's gonna work.
Well, you don't know until we see it actually, it happen.
I can look at it and tell you it's not gonna work.
Well, I can look at it and tell you that we've been managing properties in the Northeast for years and we're comfortable with it.
Show me a setup like this that you have, where you're doing that.
Say again,
Show me a setup like this kind of surface.
Deerfield is very much that way. It's small roads with apartments on either side, and we have to move water. We have to move snow. Once again, the reason I stood up was because I wanted to clarify the fact, when we said we wanted to duplicate what we did in Utica, we didn't mean we were paper cutting a project and putting it here.
That's what I envisioned, the
Well,
green space.
What we said was we wanted to create a sister product. And like I say, our original layout was much more like Schuyler Commons and Deerfield than this is. But that's because of the discussions and the give and take we've had with this board over the last year and a half. We came here firmly believing that we provided to you everything you requested of us. And the fact that you feel we haven't is really upsetting, because we've worked with you, we've talked to you, we've had back and forth. We've offered to have meetings. This meets your zoning criteria in several different levels when you look at the whole area, which you should do because we moved buildings to leave that green space on that side.
Maybe that wasn't the best move,
Well, it was.
based on what we have here.
It was a move that was prompted by comments from various members of the town. And our goal,
None of us ever told you
not
to
from
do that.
this, no, but other members of the town.
Hmm.
But your request
Do
was.
they have the authority to approve a PUD?
Yes,
people you talk
yes,
to?
yes,
Town-
they
town
do.
board.
But more importantly, we were trying to work with you on your concerns about density for the whole overall project, number of units and height.
And
that-
we worked with you on that,
and that
because we
move-
were under 278 initially. We were on 200, I believe. You were at 400.
That's correct, and we are at 278 now. But the move across that consolidation is very, very much the same. You could say, yeah, we took out some surface parking because we didn't need it per your requirements, and we added it as green space and snow storage, which made more sense. I mean, the reality is that many of these apartments will not have two cars. Many of them will, a lot of them won't.
Most will, right?
A lot of them may have single professionals in them.
Yeah.
The one bedroom.
Some will
single
have 3
professional.
cars, so
So some are gonna have 2 cars, some aren't, but we, as a management company, know how to manage that. We have people on site on a continual basis, not 24 hours a day, but we have management people and maintenance people on site every day. And they manage the parking, they manage the property
So you have people that walk around sometime during the week and if my garage door is open and I don't have a car in there, but I got junk in there, you're gonna what? You're gonna knock on my door and tell me,
No, you will receive a notice from the management on your door that says to clear out your garage and park your car, or you're in violation of your lease. And yes, we're gonna notice that, because if we don't notice that, then you're causing problems for us and the rest of the tenants. We leased you an apartment for with a garage for the purpose of parking your car. You signed the lease that said that. You can laugh. We're a professional management company. We manage properties. So I'm an expert here telling you that. What we do at Deerfield. And it works. So we have done everything we can, in our opinion, to create a project that is viable, that's vibrant, that's walkable, that's beautiful, and that meets your concerns about height and density and parking.
take the area that we're looking at right here now, take that total area and tell me, maybe you can't today, but tell me how much is actually green space. I mean, there is so much sidewalk.
Brian, you've got a calculation
buildings.
right now that can say what that green space that is, don't you?
Unencumbered with water management too.
Right.
I mean, look at the amount of green space you're not considering. Look at the amount of green space around the clubhouse that belongs to all of these units.
We have building coverage, but we did not, it's not one of the prescribed bulk regulations.
Yeah, we can provide that. But look at all of the green space that is common green space to everybody around the clubhouse and the dog park. A pickleball court. Bocce ball court. A basketball court. The pool area with pavilion and outdoor kitchen, a playground. And then the dog park over below, and then the walkable area around those buildings behind it. That's all common green space. That is, you know, you're looking at the back of a townhome or the back of a garden style apartment, but that additional green spaces belongs to those residents as well, all of them, for their use. It's going to be a beautiful development. And it's going to work. And I'm asking for you to approve it. Recommend your approval or recommend your approval of conditions so we can finish and go build. I'll close with that, Brian.
Where are we tonight?
I think both sides have a lot to consider. I don't think you have to make any decision tonight. I would recommend against it. I don't think you're gonna, but I think there's been a lot of information presented back and forth. And I think both sides can consider what has been presented.
So I agree. It's obviously not in a position to make the recommendation tonight, but I think what we would ask in an interest of time is that perhaps the board could consider what, you know, something like an approval with conditions or modifications would look like, right? The concerns that we heard were obviously the discussion about parking and counting the driveway and the garage, right? And snow storage. So it seems as though the use is acceptable and it feels like a good fit, but there's some other minor things that would go into something like a recommendation ultimately to the town board. And if that could be prepared prior to the next meeting, we'll be here.
Okay.
I don't know if that works realistically, because I think you really have to have, and we're working through the technical issues. I think we got to get all those technical issues addressed before that recommendation goes forward, because to go back and forth again isn't the way it works, right? So you're going to present the plan that you guys feel is the best plan that you can do to meet the recommendations or the things that the planning board wants to see. So, one thing tonight we heard, and again, some of these other things, again, we're looking into and need to be resolved. Limits of the town. What type of access is going to be to Lincoln? Where is the access going to go into the Walmart property? You may not be able to accommodate with your current plan a location other than you've shown. I've looked at the plan and you may or may not be able to do that. So I think we need to get, once this leaves this board, I don't think it's coming back to them. Okay. So I think it needs to be an approvable set of plans, absent whatever recommendations this board may make. They may look at this and say, they don't feel that the flat units, for instance, are an appropriate type of development unit for this area because of lack of green space and those types of things. I don't know. They may say we want the access to be here. They may say they don't want to count 2 parking spaces. And so those are the recommendations we ultimately have to formulate. So that's what this board's going to have to do. We're going to have to work between Neil, myself, and the board and Steve to come up with those recommendations. And you're going to put forth the plan that you think is the one you want to put forth.
Understood.
Well, but if that's this one,
Well, it's
I
going to be, your recommendation
No, I think-
won't be in favor of this. It will be with modifications.
Yeah, if
And
I
then it's
heard,
up to the town board to decide whether they want to require those modifications or not. And if they do, if they don't, then the plan gets approved as presented. If they do, then the applicant has the opportunity to either make those changes or abandon the project. Because ultimately, this is the town board's decision, not the
all
planning.
right, so, yeah, and I guess what I was, is there a way that I'd hate like hell to go any further than we have at this point. If the town board as a board says, no, we're not gonna approve any PUD no matter what you do, then it's not fair to these guys.
But they've already gotten that initial okay from the town board that they would consider the PUD.
Then why can't we go ahead then and approve this with the recommendation, along with the things that we don't like about it?
Because you don't have everything done to recommend to them. Okay, there's still maybe some changes. We haven't gotten through, again, and we're pretty close, but there's some other things, lighting, those types of things that, we need to get resolved. Brian, I think you're working towards those and we're pretty close to them.
yeah, I
right?
think the only things that we were missing were the hot spots on the lighting plan, which are an easy technical item to fix. But
Yeah.
I guess to kind of bring together what you've said and what Mark said is that he and I would like to make sure that the plan accurately represents items that are in the town's interest, right? So the cross access to Walmart, the limits, the physical limits of the road, because again, the cross access being included or not will be denoted on the plan, regardless of the board's opinion of parking count and green space, right? So I think that's what you're saying, is that those items need to be resolved and that potentially by the next meeting, the the recommendation portion of it, the planning board's decision would still look the same, but it would be more in line with the aspects that the town controls with respect to roadways, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, those, yes. Yeah, I think you're on the right track there.
So between now and the next meeting, it sounds like Mark and I will work through those issues.
I don't know that we'll be ready at the next meeting for the recommendation, but it's probably at least another meeting out beyond that.
Okay.
For us really to get something prepared, a draft circulated, and for the board to be able to look at and comment on it. I don't know if that's going to happen. That should be great.
Okay.
Any other comments, board members?
One quick comment, not to beat a dead horse, but if I have one of these senior apartments and I would qualify, I walk out to the access road and turn east. How do I get to the wetlands? Is somebody gonna build me a bridge, or have I gotta have waders on, or? Because that's all figured in part of the calculation.
So it is figured in part part of the calculation. What we're not representing is a roadway that would be built over there, but there is an Army Corps permit to install a culvert pipe there.
I don't want a road. I just want a
Yeah, so
little bridge.
what we didn't want to do is represent the idea that a roadway could be extended over there, because then it would look poorly upon, but the culvert could still be installed. It could be installed as a gravel trail, and that's the intent of that, enough to at least get a mower across and be able to maintain the trail.
But the other idea is, and we've said it multiple times, we made this move, that area over there would be used for trails and walkways as much as we can. Once we figure out how to do that, and that would, we would be able to put in a pedestrian type crossing without a wetland impact. Where you can't build a road without a wetland impact, but you can put a pedestrian crossing.
Maybe have a couple of canoes.
Well,
To be honest with
we
you-
actually can't let people go floating in it either, so.
To be honest with you, it looks blue on this map, but most of the season you
It's
can,
heavy green.
you can physically walk across it.
Yeah.
It's not, it's a wetland, but it is a wetland.
I
right?
understand.
Yeah.
But we do very much want to use that area for resident access to go walking their dog and that type of thing, once we get the layout figured out. It's going to be a nice area for that, once you mow some paths through it, because it is pretty dense right now.
Anything else? We're good? I think we're good for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our agenda items. Any discussion from any of the team members?
No.
We have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Second.